Hi all. I briefly covered sprint planning in an earlier video. In today's video, I wanted to cover it in a little more detail on how to plan for large teams. For large programs, typically enterprises follow the Scaled Agile method. Scaled Agile method gives guidelines to track development and delivery effectively across large teams. With larger teams comes added complexity and additional overhead to track and synchronize across the teams for successfully delivering a large project. How do we do that effectively? The concept of program increments or PI was introduced to break down a large project or portfolio item into smaller increments with clear deliverables that can be delivered in a time frame like 3 months. So typically PIs are 3 months or 6 sprints long for very large projects, or can be 1.5 months or 6 sprints long for smaller projects. Remember, a sprint is typically 2 weeks long. So for your project, the key is to identify the right PI length to effectively deliver scope across the teams that you can demo to stakeholders. PI planning readiness. Since you're planning across teams, you need a way to identify if the scope is ready for planning. How do you measure that? That is by comparing the feature or user story sizing with the capacity of the teams that you have. Estimating the efforts needed. At an overall project level, estimate the user stories in terms of story points. Identify the impacts of your features across different teams. Create user stories for each of these teams and estimate the effort in story points for each of these stories. For example, an extra small feature will be 1, a small feature will be 3, a medium would have 5, etc. Once you add up the story points, you can come up with the overall effort needed from each team. Now, capacity estimates. Based on the experience of your team members, you can determine what a story point would mean for your team. For example, 1 could mean up to 1 week of effort, 3, 1 sprint of effort, and 5, 2 sprints of effort, etc. Come up with how many story points your team can support in a sprint and in a PI. Number of PIs needed. Dividing the effort estimate needed with the capacity of the team gives you the number of PIs the team needs to complete the development of the features. Make sure to add additional time for any non-development activities like user acceptance testing, data migrations, etc. Setting PI objective. For each PI, start with an objective that ties the effort across all the teams involved. Identify clearly what is the common objective teams are trying to achieve so that everyone can march to the same goals. Validate your goal by comparing the effort needed versus the capacity in place before publishing your PI objectives. Breaking down into sprints. Once the PI objective is aligned across the teams can slot their scope into individual sprints in the PI to meet the objective. While these steps put you on a good path, make sure you have periodic tracking in place to keep the teams aligned during execution. We will cover that in the next video. Thank you.